And kolemoen, of course, starting second in this game because he was on red, so he will have the chance to really show us why Henselt is so feared in this tournament and why it's been banned so many times. If he can pull it off, Adzikov, maybe not the greatest example of why Henselt is so fantastic right now, but kolemoen might do it justice in this game.
Yeah, he's certainly main. We see Selkirk in his opening hand, a very popular one of the newer cards, with one of the greatest premiums in the game as well. And however, we're going to see why the red coin is so important in Henselt with those winches and the leader ability. But for Adzikov, starting out, looks like he's going straight for the Skellen. Not Adzikov, sorry, proNEO, what am I talking about? Going straight for the Skellen, and the Roach comes out too. 14 points and a bit of utility, not a horrible opener.
And in this matchup, it's really interesting because proNEO can really punish Henselt and kill a lot of machines with the Viper Witchers and the ointments to res those Viper Witchers. And it's not the greatest thing point-wise, but it can really mess up your game if you don't have a Henselt target. Obviously, a 3-point leader isn't what I would call good on average. It'll struggle to win you games. So if he can't find that window, he should in theory, but if he can't, then that might just lose him the game.
So if you're Alchemy, how do you go about playing this matchup?
Well, you have to create res targets to start. You need Viper Witchers in your graveyard. You need, the chance for Ointment to hit something and not just be a dead card. So you have to create a bit of a base in your graveyard. Yeah. But you do also want to not fall into the trap of letting Henselt create a huge tempo swing and then you fall behind and lose on even without any carryover.
Absolutely. I think one of the important things here as well is nice big targets like Ronvid do allow those Viper Witches to get their max value and then sit in the graveyard ready for the ointments, but they can also be used to deny the Henselt targets. So if you see a Winch come out and a Battering Ram, if you Viper Witcher it, it will deny the Henselt the ability to flood the board with Battering Rams, which is definitely one of the reasons why that deck is quite feared.
And right away, the Viper Witcher, like you said, coming down, great value for a bronze card. You're obviously sacrificing a lot of deck building choices and forcing yourself to play, cards like Swallow Potion. They're just 10-point bronzes, not the greatest card in the game, but they do have that, alchemy synergy, and the Viper Witcher needs, kind of the sacrifice to make it such a good bronze card.
And here we go, you see the first Winch coming out, offering a choice of, what was that, Reinforced Trebuchet. There's the other two, go on, click the show cards.
It's important to know it's not a card that he has in his deck already. And with Neneki instead of Deathmold in this Henselt list, you're aiming at, if you find the chance, to create the most devastating Henselt pool of all time with 4 to 5 machines coming out in full force from your deck. And that's really the scary thing about this deck. If kolemoen can make that work and proNEO gives him the window to find the opportunity, he could be in a lot of trouble. But of course you have to find those Battering Rams or those Reinforced Trebuchets with your winches first.
Oh yeah, we do see the original meta card of Gwent, the Reinforced Trebuchet, coming out from the Winch. And he replied to with a Cantarella. Nicely timed from proNEO, actually. A very small gap created there.
Exactly, that 8-point Reinforced Trebuchet, it makes it so that it's great in the long run, it's going to get a lot of value, but right now it's not the best in terms of value, so it opens up a window for proNEO to say, do you have Thaler? Because if you don't, you may be in trouble.
However, he does have Thaler, which will be coming from his Alzur's Double Cross, albeit at a boosted point value.
Which isn't so bad when you're running cards like Scorch, for example. He doesn't have it in hand now, but it's an option that could say, I can still Scorch this. Well, now it's at 14. If the Reinforced Trebuchet doesn't behave, it might not work out that way, but it's always a good thing to be able to always have Scorch viable.
Yeah, we see kolemoen choosing to keep all of his Battering Rams in his deck, not drawing that one from Thaler and taking the Siege Master instead.
Because you're hoping for Trish Telekinesis or Winch to find you that Battering Ram and say, well, you have 3 in deck. Do you want to pull this now? If you get the chance, you normally do want to. Otherwise, you may want to wait for Neneki to shuffle some of those Winched Battering Rams back and then create even more of a gap.
That's how that card's meant to work. The II says come out, shortening the gap. Of course, as soon as you fall 20 points, well, above 20 points behind, those will rush to your aid and hopefully not in your mulligan. So kolemoen gets his done banners out without flaw.
Battering Ram here would be great with that Ronvid to have that perfect, Roach and the Viper Witcher both at 4 points and get that perfect tempo. Swing with the Battering Ram, great value. Also boosting Bloody Baron, like we saw in past games. And overall just, creating another Battering Ram for your deck.
Definitely, and with those Siege Masters to proc it again and again as well, it can do so much damage were this round to continue. However, how far do you think proNEO goes into this?
As much as he can. He cannot lose on even. If you lose on even, it's very hard to come back. Obviously, kolemoen can either pass round 2 and go for a long round 3 and have the extra card because there is no carryover involved for proNEO's deck. Of course, there's no Morgfrog, no Olgierd, nothing really to hang on there in round 2.
Definitely, we're seeing just trading the advantage backwards and forwards, like you say, losing on equal would be pretty disastrous for both decks, but especially for Nilfgaard when you know, Henselt has this huge explosive finisher that he's not even used yet, and Neneke in hand. So I expect to see kolemoen lean more towards value cards. You know, he doesn't have a crewman on board right now, so there's no Ronvid synergy for the ballistas.
kolemoen can play Henselt right now and say, I'm going to win this round no matter what. Please step away. But he's giving up one of the... Oh, he's going for it. And I'm a fan of this because, to be honest, against Viper Witchers, it's hard to guarantee you're going to find a Henselt target. And this really shifts the game in his favor, I think, even though he's using one of his most powerful tools.
Definitely. I mean, he still has very powerful tools available to him. Siege Masters, Triss Telekinesis, Seltkirk. But this is really the nail in the coffin for this round. With 4 battering rams on the board now for kolemoen. That
Bloody
is
Baron,
a 30-point gap.
Huge boost to Bloody Baron. It's a massive gap like we see here. And proNEO has to either make it in 1 to win this, or be in a winning position, or go 2 cards down.
Even with 2 cards, I mean, this is a 32-point gap to take it. That's not insignificant, and that would be 16 points a card, which would mean he was spending some really core tools, like potentially even Vilgefortz, obviously Calvite as well. So I think that, yeah, this is not looking like a great position for proNEO to be in.
I think Calvite could be fine to spend because you have to spend it anyway because of Cahir, and kolemoen would probably drive past next turn. So in this case, I think it's correct to play it. You should either play it now or play it next turn to enable it for Cahir. So either way, I think you're not really sacrificing too much, and you catch up quite a bit. I mean, he's only now 15 points away, which you can do with a few cards, I think. So it makes it much more feasible.
Certainly can. However, it's all about what kolemoen responds with and how much that gap increases by.
Does kolemoen want the 2-card advantage, or does he want to try and push this further and win on even, which is always going to be, I think, the favorable position because you have control over how the game goes in round 2 and 3, which is, I think, always better than winning or losing 2 cards down.
Especially against a deck like Alchemy, where they can burst so many points very short. And, you know, when you spend your Henselt, you can't necessarily rival that burst capability. So I think he probably is looking for the win on even here.
Well, the board state isn't really favorable. There are no small units to kill. There are, of course, crewman bodies on the board already with Henselt and Ronvid, so he has that already set up for him. But of course, you can't kill these 9s right away, so you're not getting that Bloody Baron buff, for example, and it's not as effective as a different board state. Still, I think kolemoen, he's very far ahead now.
Yeah, I think so. 25 points to even tie. And of course, that Reinforced Blister can kill the Viper Witcher, although that would enable Anointment, which I'm sure he's painfully aware of. Mandrake coming out, strengthening Calvite for the Cahir res later on.
And another big tool spent, Vesemir, a card, a tool that you don't want to spend so early on. You want to try and keep that for later on, but still forced to play in this turn. And kolemoen really thinking here what he's going to do.
I'm an officer and
So Siege Master comes down to reactivate the battering ram, taking out a Viper Witcher and pinging Vesemir as well, which will of course should another battering ram to come down from Triss Telekinesis or whatnot. That does make it available to fire twice. However, that is such a big gap in points.
And still kolemoen keeping, Selkirk and Triss for later on.
Yeah.
Still has a lot of cards that he can draw into that are going to be fantastic. Neneke not as great, but he can still shuffle back to Dumb Banners and create some kind of situation where they can come out a second time, which is, almost BM. I mean, it hurts to see that happen.
Yeah, that would certainly be creative use of Neneke by kolemoen. However, with cards just like Swallow Potion and whatnot in his hand, it's either core piece. Oh, he looks like he's going for the core. He's going for the Viper Witcher. Going to load it up, fire it at that Cantarell to get maximum value from it. 15-point res with the Ointment. Not bad, but he's running out of cards to play. I mean, if that Vilgefortz comes down, Cahir's dead. You can't burn a 15-point Calvite as much as you may want to for the meme. You can't do it. So he really has an Ointment, a Swallow Potion, and a Vilgefortz to work with.
That Siege Master looking great on that battering ram.
Certainly is.
Getting the 5 there, getting the full value, and of course 2 more bodies to kill for that juicy Bloody Baron, the thick Bloody Baron coming in round 3. We're gonna have to guess what it's at right now, but I think it's gonna come down at least at 20 points by the very end of it.
I'd say it's already hovering 15. He passes on every 10th round, and he also puts kolemoen 26 points ahead. So that Siege Master really, really just tearing the board up. Look at this board state for proNEO.
And this is kolemoen really showing how this deck works, and proNEO finally forced to pass and say, I give up. It's just too much for me to handle. Losing on even, not great, and of course kolemoen, big advantage going into round 2.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there is a nice Cahir, you know, 6-point Cahir, raising a really powerful Calvite. But, I mean, there's no small units right now in hand, which makes Vilgefortz really quite difficult to play. So, some mulliganing required here for proNEO.
And that Scorch, another very good pick there for kolemoen. Definitely wants to keep that Scorch, I think. He's going to almost guarantee, I mean, at least an 11-point Calvite. And then, of course, if anything buffs that Calvite as well, it will be pretty troublesome for proNEO to deny that value on that huge Scorch.
Yeah, Natalis coming out as well, rounding out the gold and silver theme of kolemoen's hand. I mean, 1 bronze there. His hand is looking so powerful compared to proNEO's. I mean,
Neo's
got some nice options, but...
Do you pass your kolemoen? You get the guaranteed card advantage.
You get the guaranteed card advantage, right?
Or you can go for setting up plays like Naneki. It's a pretty low value play for next round.
But when cards like Joachim and Vilgefortz and Cahir exist, do you want to risk going in the short round, or would you rather just take the +1?
Yeah, you don't really have that great of a finisher in terms of, you know, obviously if proNEO can catch up, his Cahir is going to be better than your Selkirk or your Triss.
Yeah. So there we go. We see the pass come out from kolemoen, opting to take the +1 card advantage. I think proNEO is considering his options with this Asaya.
Really thinking how he can mess up his opponent. Putting them banners back can mess up the mulligan, but it could also just benefit kolemoen's deck. And he doesn't even know if kolemoen is running Naneki or if he's running the Death Mold variant, so it's hard to say. I think in general you don't want to do that. He just thins out some more alchemy cards, plays the novice, and goes into the round 3 a card down, which Tailbot came back from in game 1 against
Certainly
Azathoth.
did, yeah.
But I don't see proNEO. I mean, the Cahir's going to be great, that is true, but Swallow Potion, a Sire, not the biggest tempo place.
Alright, so Swallow Potion is swapped out for the Slave Driver, which can spawn some nice machines, but with the high base strengths looking on kolemoen's hand, if it's anything like Battering Ram, you know, he's not really going to have optimal targets for it, so that Slave Driver's value will be somewhat limited. However, kolemoen looking at his mulligan, opting to keep double Reinforced Ballista.
Of course, Selkirk, I think, finding optimal value on that Asire, not taking any damage at all and becoming a 19-point gold, which is, you know, I think it's a great thing. Obviously, golds don't normally reach 19. It's always, you know, kind of conditional to get that much value out of them. But Selkirk, pretty easy 19. Why not play it?
Absolutely. And I like these putbacks from proNEO's Asaya, putting back a 1-strength Ronvid and his own Roach as well to boost his gold when played. So I like that use of Asaya.
This high in the end, you know, at the very least a 15-point silver if you include Roach, so not too bad in terms of tempo. It is a bit delayed tempo, but it's all going to happen in round 3 anyway, so not a big difference. And Naneki, of course, putting back the Dun banners. It's going to be hard to get him out without a spy, but it could happen. That Cahir, I think, is definitely going to be a 20-plus point play, so it might just trigger those Dun banners yet again.
Yeah, I mean, if he delays enough, if, you know, maybe just like bides his time with some Reinforced Ballistas, he could arguably quite feasibly reactivate those Dun banner like Cavalry, which would be double II sirs and definitely provide a big swing in his favor.
And that's almost a game of who has the worst cards. They want to play, proNEO wants to play kind of low tempo, play his worst cards first, not go too high in terms of tempo, and kolemoen wants to do the same thing, so that proNEO is forced to play a 20-plus point play.
And there we go, kolemoen 16 points behind. I wouldn't be surprised to see a Reinforced Ballista come out here, see if he can tease out that 21 points required to pull the Dun banner like Cavalry.
I think he knows regardless of what he does, that Cahir is always going to be a 20-plus point play. I mean, 6 plus 11 is already 17, so even pulling a Foglet or you know, a Dun banner from Calvite would be enough, would hit over 20, so proNEO has no chance to go under that. But like you said, it could be an option here to go a bit. I mean, you have to play these at any point, and you're not really going to get any more crewman units, so why not just play it now, I guess, unless you want to wait to try and set up a Scorch, maybe.
And it looks like it's coming down here, going to ping the Viper Witcher. Here we see Slave Driver.
Back in line!
For his own Reinforced Ballista.
This is a game of who can play less points. Dun
yeah,
banners,
not typically how Gwent works.
They changed Gwent completely, that's how powerful they are. They make you play a different game altogether.
Alright, so the gap is currently 17 in proNEO's favor, but there are so many powerful cards sitting in kolemoen's hand.
Not quite there yet for kolemoen. A few more points would have done it, but still 3 points away. And yet another Reinforced Ballista in hand that he could use now, or he could wait to try and set something up, of course. Natalis and Triss and Selkirk will all be much higher, and Scorch you generally want to wait a bit so you can get some maximum value, find maybe 2 11s to hit.
Oh, looks like Natalis is coming down.
Dark clouds gather over Temeria.
Gets the Winch and gets a few options here, none of them are in his deck, but Hansel has been used, so it's not too relevant.
I expect to see the Reinforced Trebuchet come out here. He doesn't want the Siege Tower to rival for a Scorch target, arguably. But I may be wrong. No, there's the Reinforced Trebuchet. Killing the Slave Driver.
Not the greatest in this, you know, somewhat short round 3, but still decent bronze value. Should find, unless it's killed by a Viper Witcher, which it most probably will be.
Ooh, let's look at the point difference though. Okay, the gap's only 2, so proNEO knows that he can Viper Witcher down that Reinforced Trebuchet.
I think proNEO also knows that there's no chance that Cahir's not going to do it, so...
Yeah. But like, even if Cahir is 20 points, right, like that means they have to be on equal points for it to proc Dunbanner, so I think that kolemoen still probably wants to be minimizing his points as much as possible.
If proNEO plays less points now to try and play around it, he's really just losing points in the long run, so... And if this is an Ale, for example, he's just getting Scorched better value. It does. That Asire already at 15.
It's guaranteed to put that to a 15, and also like boosts up a nice other juicy target for the Seltkirk too. So
I think proNEO knows that the Kelvik coming down at 11 means that the Asire would have rivaled it for a double Scorch. So he decides to sacrifice, give Asire 2 more or 4 more points, and make sure it's only 1 Scorch target.
I mean, you could argue that sort of suicide charging Seltkirk into Asire at this point would be optimal, really, because then you'd open up the double Scorch later on. So it'd be interesting to see which one of those would be the most value, actually.
And
but
killing this novice,
19 on that ballista.
Killing this novice would really hurt the Vilgefortz here, because it wouldn't have a target to burn that's low health. It would obviously have to burn a 7, for example. So instead, he goes for the Scorch there. Cahir will be played here with the very, very thick Kelvik coming out.
Yeah,
with Brooch as well.
I forgive you.
No Foglith, no Dunbanners. What is he going to pick here?
Be interesting to see what he goes for here. Of course, the Runestone does have the higher potential high roll, but he may just choose to go for the Novice.
Novice is more guaranteed points. You're guaranteed to get, you know, X amount of value, so you may go for that for the safer option. You could, you know, feel a bit risky. Wants a gamble.
There we go. Going for the Runestone. Cynthia's probably going to be his best bet here, unless he really wants to take a punt on Albrecht. I can't imagine that in an Alchemy deck in particular.
That was a big swing.
Oh,
and that
there
means
they
that
come, the
Dunbanners
IISers.
come
That
out.
is double Dunbanners this game for kolemoen. Getting them to proc twice, he must be pretty satisfied with that. That is value he's found from those cards.
Tristan to Winch here could find Battering Ram. There is no crewman target on board, so it wouldn't be able to kill that 4 there. So Vilgefortz has at least, you know, that play there, so it's a +5 positive play, and then whatever it pulls out as well. Instead, he goes for Seltkirk first.
There you go, that is the perfect Seltkirk duel.
We have big Vilgefortz here for proNEO to stand a chance.
Yeah, he's going to need something glorious from this Vilgefortz. What's he going to get? He's going to get a Black Blood. Not bad. Not bad at all. Gravehag, do it.
I think Gravehag is probably the best option. Other options aren't too fantastic. He's counting the units.
Is it more to play Ekamara? I mean, Ekamara's 11.
I think he's
right?
reading what it does. It's a card that hasn't been played much. He has to make sure the effects are consistent.
He's like, hey, that's that carryover card, right? Oh, wait, no, never mind.
This is not closed beta monsters, merchant, please. He does go for
No, that was
the
Vrand back
Mortar
there.
instead. 12 points.
One
Is it
more
enough?
point than the Ekamara. 21 points to close. 9 points coming out of the Reinforced Ballista.
2 points from the Reinforced Trebuchet.
2 points from the Reinforced Trebuchet as well, meaning that it needs 10 from a Triss to win.
And Triss is a card that always
That
gives
is
you
a
points.
swallow. Yep, that will
Even with
always give you
Swallow
points.
Potion.
Just great. And that's going to be enough for kolemoen to take this first game as he goes up 1-0 in this series to take a place in the semi-finals tomorrow. In what was a very closely, and I would almost say like awkwardly contested match between these two players, really. I mean, dancing around Dunbanners, there was, yeah, no real denial of Henselt targets either coming from the Nilfgaard side, so difficult match for sure.
I mean, these are really the tier 1 decks, I think, right now in the meta. You see Hensel, of course, great on red coin, and just Nilfgaard Alchemy is good at all times. I think if it works well, if you have the targets in the graveyard, you have, you know, removal with the Viper Witchers, you have great tempo plays and great carryover, almost finishers for round 3 with Kalvi and Cahir as well. So it's always going to work out, I think. But in the end, Henselt red coin was a bit too powerful, and for proNEO to go hard down in round 3 was, I think, the deciding factor. And even then, almost got in there. I mean, he didn't lose by too much.
For sure, it was very, very close indeed. And we're really seeing the power of Triss Telekinesis come through in the game she's appearing, and really, really impressive card so far this tournament. However, will we see Consume next? It sounds like we will. I hear myself an Arrakis Queen versus Bruverhug.
Bruverhug that is a Bruverhug that runs both Igni and Iglai. So 2 new cards to watch out for. Cards that have a very high ceiling in terms of value, if you can find it. They may be dead cards. I mean, if Iglai doesn't have a spell to steal, it's an 8-point card. Igni could be a 5-point card, but it could also be 30 plus in the right situation.
I think it's safe to say with Forktails and Neckers kicking about, Igni may not be a 5-point card. It might be somewhat bigger than that.
And I think seeing 3 spells out of 10 cards in kolemon's hand might indicate that a Goliath will find value at some point.
Yeah, I mean, a Goliath onto a Monster's Nest is really nice if you time it correctly for either a Barbergazi or a Ghoul, perhaps.
And you can get both, carry over with Barbergazi, like you said, and just it has a lot of options. So a very versatile card in the Goliath and a very versatile card in Monster's Nest as well.
Yeah, certainly. This is going to be an interesting matchup between these two decks. Elven Swarm going up against Consume Monsters. 2 metas meeting.
No Neckers here for kolemon. Neckers are normally a card you want to see.
Yeah, Neckers are typically quite useful when you're playing Consume. No, oh, look at that face. He's not happy with that opening draw.
These are flashbacks from last Open where nothing went right with this deck. And once again, we see 2 Slizzards. The marching orders will pull a 3rd Slizzard and
yes,
not
it will. Yep.
any kind of Death Wish tutor. So kolemon is in a bit of trouble. I mean, blue coin is always a good pass, so we can go for that. But we saw how good Elves were in the long round with Demorkis obviously playing out of his mind with Saskia and the Vanguards as well for a huge point boost. So
okay, so let's talk worst case scenario though. If you're kolemon right now, what do you do? You dry pass, right?
You dry pass,
yeah.
you find a Necker in round 2, and if you don't find a Necker in round 2, you probably forfeit and think about never bringing Consume again.
Yeah, I imagine that's actually probably quite sage life advice. Rolling for the Mahakam Defender, not going to find it.
Could empower his small units here.
Yep.
Make them a bit more
Obviously,
confident.
Very important, making them 4 strengths.
Psychological warfare there from proNEO.
Elven Scout 4 strength seems like a good idea. So let's move on into round 2. kolemoen playing the mulligan game at this stage.
Doesn't find it. Doesn't find it.
Doesn't find it. Let's go. Mulligan feature. Don't fail me now. Where's the Necker?
Your most dead card here would be Brewist Ritual because you don't really have anything to pull with it. If you don't find Neckers, so you could also go for maybe the Forktail. Oh, he doesn't find it.
He doesn't find it. That's gotta be. I mean,
I'm thinking if there's any way you can pull it here, but I'm not seeing how.
There's no way that I'm aware of, unless in some way proNEO was to power that draw through Summoning Circle, but that can't happen.
There's no recons in kolemon's deck. He can't Elven Merc Summoning Circle either into a Necker. It's looking very, very tough.
I mean, I'm looking at this, and I don't think there's any way for him to fetch either Merylorn or a Necker from his deck.
Now, can kolemon bluff enough to the point where maybe proNEO? Yeah.
No, he cannot. Flashbacks of Gwent Open number 3 here as kolemoen almost immediately forfeits his Consume game. proNEO looking a little bit bemused, but quite happy with that as well. Gets a win on the board, gets a nice little essentially free equalizer, right? Going to 1-1 in this series. kolemoen, slight smile to himself, not too happy with that. Remembering
Absolutely
what happened
devastating.
last time.
That is literally the worst thing that can happen to you in a tournament. So much at stake, and you just don't find your Neckers. And it's a risk you take when decks.
Hey, you bring a high roll deck, you roll high or you don't.
When decks are very focused on just one unit, if you don't draw into it, you could run into problems like we saw here in kolemon. He's a player that's played, I think, a lot of games with Consume, and with decks like these in general, he knows he's not going to find it. He's not going to waste anyone's time. proNEO also, an experienced player, he knows that if Neckers aren't being played at the start, it means you don't have them, and he's not going to pass until the very end of round 2. And without Neckers, your Consume just does nothing.
It does nothing, no. It's a single card
and
deck,
9-point cards, so it's impossible to win.
Okay, so he's back on the Arrakis Queen, going for round 2, going up against a Brand.
For the sake of competitive Gwent, he finds the Neckers. He finds 2 Neckers here. We don't see Coral from proNEO, which would be one answer.
I would expect him to potentially keep double Necker in hand anyway, though, anticipating the Coral, as of course it's a very popular answer to Consume when playing a Skellige. So kolemoen, of course, doesn't have the information that we all have, and may well imagine that Coral has been mulliganed for.
And there is no Mandrake in this Skellige list for proNEO, so Coral really the only big answer to these Neckers. There isn't Igni either. Unluckily for you, Igni will not be seen in this tournament. Neither will a Gleiss, unfortunately for all our viewers. But
well, of course, unless proNEO is to win and plays them tomorrow.
Exactly, so stay tuned for more. But kolemon, he has his Neckers, much better than last game, and he finally has a chance to actually play Gwent, which is good.
There we go. Yeah, I heard that Gwent is actually okay. So he gets Merylorn as well, so he actually has triple source of Neckers available in his hand, which is really decent if he is anticipating counters.
And King Brand, a great deck on blue coin. I think it has the right answer here with Morkvarg, Wolfsbane, and Olgierd. You get the carryover, and you get also some delayed tempo. It makes King Brand one of the better leaders, I think, in the game, to be honest. Just its flexibility. And it's interesting because kolemoen has a chance to pass here if you were able to play 2 rounds of fairly high tempo points and then pass and make proNEO play a card and also have Wolfsbane trigger at the same time. So going kind of overkill with this round, but because Consume is kind of a very different deck where you don't care about card advantage too much, you just care about developing your strategy, I think kolemoen is going to just, play out his Neckers and start getting that Vran Necker Warrior train.
Yeah, I think so. And actually, this Skellige build is very, very well. There are whale harpoons, there's been a brand, but for the most part, it's very proactive as well. So actually, there is real potential for the Necker Snowball to really go out of control here.
Yeah, and of course, only Coral's an answer, really. No Igni, no Scorch, no Mandrake, nothing to really reset these absolutely massive boosted units. And if Coral isn't found at all, I think it could, kolemoen has a very high chance of winning this game because these Neckers, if not stopped, can get very massive.
Yeah, and there's already an ADC'd Necker Warrior coming out. There's another Necker Warrior in hand. There's a Vran to eat it, and there's a Slizzard to pull another. So definitely the sourcing of the Neckers is not going to be an issue for kolemoen, even if this Storm chips away at them slowly.
This is a huge turn of events with the Wolfsbane triggering, a lot of points, and Burn a Brand, of course, like Hensel, you have to play into that row. You cannot decide to go off that row because your Vrans, your Necker Warriors, everything kind of is dictated by that Necker positioning, so you can't really shy away from that row, and that guarantees value for proNEO in a long round. So kolemoen can go, a card down, or 2 cards down, but 3 cards starts getting into dangerous territory, and he's going to have to see how he can do it so he doesn't lose too much value over a long turn.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, that Storm will actually enable his Slizzard should he choose to play into this round. But like you say, he needs to make sure that the gap... You can get away with a big gap, we were saying earlier, going 2 cards down is generally really a sign that things are not going to go well for you in Gwent. However, with Consume, the rules are a little bit different because Consume plays in a style like no other deck. But yeah, like you say, once you start getting to 3 and above, you're kind of pushing your luck at that stage.
Yeah, we saw Hannah-chan with the Great Swords go 2 cards down, still win no problem because he had that great win condition in that 27-point Greatsword. We saw it with Tailbot as well, going 2 cards down and then having a fantastic round 3 with Tristan to Bone Talisman and just great plays overall. Restore as well, just a fantastic hand. And kolemoen can do the same if he keeps some of these stronger plays and he has those 20-point Neckers in his deck. It's a chance to maybe go 2 cards down and still be okay with it.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, one of the problems is he almost has to play into the... Well, he does have to play into the Storm here to avoid Whale Harpooners. So that's why the Necker Warrior is going there. It's going to make that Bran nice and fat. And the Neckers will start getting buffed, and already there is a great deal in the deck.
And we see already 7 Neckers total, counting the one on board and counting the ones in his hand as well. Ideally, you want to go for 9 total with 3 Necker Warriors, and that's what he's going to go for, really. You can get more with cards like Summoning Circle or Decoy, but that's a bit more dangerous. You kind of risk a bit more, and it's almost not worth it because you maybe can't even get all of the Neckers out because there are so many. So yeah, 9 is the golden number, really. Yeah,
that's where those Forktails really come in key, where if you get all those Neckers in, hopefully you get enough Forktails to, like you say, actually make use of them, right? So everything seems to be going pretty rosy for kolemoen at this point, and this is really getting to the stage where unless the Necker deck starts getting interacted with, it will become pretty uncontrollable.
Yeah, proNEO can win this round on even. That is very true. He has carryover, so he can drive past next turn, and it makes it so kolemoen has to, go a card down into round 3, but his round 3 is going to be very powerful, whereas proNEO's is still dictated by the general rules of Gwent, whereas kolemoen's not so much.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, even with triple longships, right, like that's a nice amount of tempo, but, well, the Neckers are all in. There's 9 right now, and they're all getting boosted every time that Vran eats.
Good to have Arrakis Queen maybe coming out early to try and boost all these Neckers at the same time early on.
Yes.
And also maybe dodge some of the bigger cards, because if you play Arrakis Queen in round 3 and your opponent has Igni, you can't really play around. You have to eat 3 units no matter what. So if you eat, you get a 60-point Arrakis Queen, you lose the game. But in this round where it's still round 1, you can still pass and save the game for the most part. You can play a bit riskier and have that huge Arrakis Queen that may be game losing in different rounds.
Yeah, certainly. I think that the Arrakis Queen may come out and try to potentially, I mean, is Igni even a card that's big? It feels unbelievable to say, but is Igni even particularly played around these days because it's so rare? But yeah, we may see it. Try to keep it a little bit low, just eating a couple of lower strength units and the Necker, or you may just go for really splitting a lot of this power out of the Skellige Storm.
He's saving, exactly, he's saving some of those Skellige Storm points, trying to get some units out of there, maybe only keep the Vran Warrior and the Necker.
24 below Igni.
Calculated. kolemoen is a man of maths. He likes, making sure he's playing around everything he can, and he doesn't know what proNEO's running. proNEO may be running Agony. He doesn't really know at all, so always good to play on the safe side.
Absolutely. Those ships are doing great work, but those Neckers are getting bigger and bigger.
And
with that Phoenix in the hand.
The blacksmith there adding some armor to that longship and just a little bit more synergy, adding both carryover in terms of the restore Corsair combo in round 3, and also adding some armor to make sure that he's getting those extra points in this round. In the end, kolemoen goes for the pass there, and says, proNEO, you can take this round, but my round 3 is going to blow you away.
Yeah, I think that's actually kolemoen basically saying, well, I got all my Neckers out, boost them up a bit. All right, see you later. He just doesn't care about that first round. It's a utility round. There's the Coral, though.
Coral finally coming out. Really a big answer against Neckers and against any kind of unit that is very, very boosted. We will see Vrans getting to very big numbers as well. So Coral could be game winning. We're going to have to see if it'll be enough to really counter the setup that kolemoen has already gone through.
And kolemoen just dropped the second Necker from his hand, actually. So there could be some real source denial going on here.
It may be very tricky indeed. proNEO has to decide, does he want to try and kill these Neckers right away and say, maybe you don't have any more in hand, maybe you have a bad hand and I can shut down your game plan right now? Or does he save Coral for a finishing play in round 3? He has card advantage, so it's always hard to really decide what's best.
Yeah, so if this gets Coraled, it'll proc the Phoenix into Slizzard to actually get one out. So that would be a key asset gone immediately, and then you'd be at the mercy of drawing Brewess or a Necker itself. So
proNEO knows this. He knows that
setting up tempo.
He knows that there's going to be more ways now with the more advanced game plan for kolemoen to access those Neckers, and he decides not to go for the Coral right away.
Yeah, that Mandrake could actually potentially find pretty sweet value on one of these ships later in the round as well.
Barbagalzi right away getting that carryover guaranteed for next round, while also starting to cycle these Neckers.
And there we go. That is the explosive power of Neckers coming out. Barbagalzi itself now presenting an otherwise viable Coral target. The carryover has been established.
And still 5 Neckers left in kolemoen's deck. Still a lot to pull from there. The string never ends, like the tricks that the clowns do. So kolemoen, in this case, a very good Gwent player, not a clown, but still a very good trick that will work for him.
kolemoen, not a clown.
Confirmed. We see Restore coming out, and this is really saying proNEO is going to really, go for this round. He's committing a lot to this.
Yeah, he certainly is. I mean, that Restore into the Demon is really, like you say, that's a core play, right? So explosive round 3. So triple ships coming out. proNEO maybe just trying to think, okay, well, if kolemoen's focusing a little bit more on utility, maybe I can pressure almost even into like a round 2 situation if he can't get more than one Necker out. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how kolemoen responds to this and if he reads the threat coming in from Neo.
You may see the carryover and say, well, what if I just 2-0 him? Then there is no carryover, so that may be a line of thought as well. Maybe not the safest way to play it out, because already kolemoen, with just one play catching up, Restore is one of the biggest tools that you have in Skellige, and kolemoen says, look at my forktail, it's just as good.
Yeah, it certainly is. So there we see a Shieldsmith coming out again, armoring up one of those ships, allowing it to withstand the damage, increasing their tempo per turn. So this is all going to be about those Neckers and that Coral.
And Marauder coming out really big as well, a lot of curse units, a lot of damage units on proNEO's board, but these Neckers are just bigger and bigger every time. That Mandrake is going to be great on a longship as well. On that 15-point longship, kolemoen has a lot to work with still.
Yeah, he certainly does. So, double Forktails and a Mandrake. Lots of points. That Coral will swing for a lot of points too, but it's just the question of, does Neo want to commit at this round?
kolemoen is committing this Phoenix here, which is a big tool to save for round 3. It adds a few extra points, and it really gives you options. If he doesn't take a Necker here with the Phoenix, proNEO can play that Coral into the Necker, and there is no way to take one out. So I think kolemoen knows this. He plays it safe, gets 2 Neckers out, and really opens up his possibilities, because Forktails are now, easily 30 to 40 point plays.
Yeah, they certainly are. So there you go, double Neckers on the board for kolemoen. Neo happy to continue bleeding the round, it seems. But, I mean, the next Forktail to come down is going to be huge.
I think we're going to see kolemoen play a Forktail into maybe Slizzard Necker.
I think so.
Obviously not commit too far into this, not get all your Neckers out. He still has, I believe, 3 in deck, so it still has a few options with the Neckers for round 3. And carryover as well.
Yep, Slizzard Necker, you called it correctly. So he keeps some in the deck, but that is a huge point Forktail. Balancing his units nicely to play around the Whale Harpooner.
Coral's great as well, 30-point play.
Oh, she's a 32-point... Oh, no, 30-point play, you're correct, actually. I can't maths, it's hard.
Harpooner, not a very good play at all. This is not a swarm deck. This deck goes tall. This is a skyscraper deck. There is no width here. It's all going up, and we see only 6 units on the board. Harpooner, getting 11 points of value, not ideal really when you put this card in your deck.
Yeah, I mean at this point this is just being played as a delaying action. He's saying, hey, kolemoen, play another card, please. So not intending to win with that Whale Harpooner whatsoever, but maybe going to judge the situation based on the next card that comes down, see if he can coral, but it's precarious, to put it mildly.
kolemoen carryover and the card advantage as well, so it's tough. I mean, this deck is hard to play around if you don't have a lot of counters. It is really tough, especially on blue coin where you kind of have an easier start with the very slow setup that Neckers have with Neckers and Necker Warriors and Vran Warriors. With red coin you can't punish it as much, and it shows here. I mean, kolemoen, I think very comfortable.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what kolemoen chooses to spend here.
I'd imagine the
on
Mandrake.
Yep,
The Forktail is a bit riskier to play now because you might not run into any more Necker pulling cards for the round 3. So Mandrake is a pretty good play that will probably not get any value round 3, but gets a ton of value now.
There we go, that Longship gets Mandraked.
And now proNEO can spend his win condition. But still, kolemoen has great top decks, running into Neckers that are already boosted to 16, 17.
Not even to mention the fact that even a reset Barbragazi, when it gets down to 1 card each, is significant. That's 3 points and immediately increases the curve that your opponent has to play as to keep up. proNEO's considering it, wondering if it's a dud left in kolemoen's hand. Well, it would have to be a pretty big dud.
This is a time where proNEO just says, what went wrong? When did this happen? I mean, it's hard to play around Consume. They have so many tools later on where you think there's no way to play correctly, but here kolemoen can very easily pull out another Necker, and I think it'll be enough.
Elite the Jade figurine and a Necker, and then head into next round with his loyal Barbragazi at his side. But Restore is spent by proNEO.
And Coral, and really, I mean, most of the things you want to Sigdrifa.
It'll be Morkvarg and they'll be all good, but they won't be worth as much as the Barbragazi. Even together.
kolemoen thinking the best way to do this is try and get maximum points and keep some assets in his deck. Some more Neckers to pull later on.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be a 2 strength and a Necker, right?
Double checking, making sure that play wins in this round. The long chips are taking, and that's 3 points every turn, so you have to be careful with that to make sure to include that in your math. Does finally go for the Consume on what looks like the Jade figurine, followed by a Necker.
Oh, the Necker. There we go.
And it still, of course, boosts everything. Necker comes out at a very healthy 19. Longships add 3, but still 10 points behind for proNEO. And kolemoen with carryover and, in theory, with better top decks.
Yes, well, better top decks, that often isn't the rule, just that's how it's cuff.
We've seen Foglets, we've seen Dun Banners come out. Let's see if kolemoen can get punished or not, but he wins the carryover game.
Like Marauder versus a Vran. Vran's not going to do it, it's going to be a mulligan.
Skjall's good. Skjall's a good target.
Skjall is good.
Blizzard is very good as well.
Better.
Blizzard into Necker. Should be better. That
All right.
Skjall will come down at a 17-point play
I believe
in total. So as long as kolemoen has over 20, he is good to go. Necker comes out at 17, 25 points, and if my math doesn't fail me, he wins by 5 points.
kolemoen wins by 5 points in what is actually an incredibly close Consume match going up against that Skellige deck there, but honestly it was just the lack of answers, right? I mean, it was always a case of if kolemoen got a source of multiple Neckers out, like proNEO was not going to deal with it. So yeah, we saw kolemoen's Consume both gloriously backfire and gloriously triumph so far, which leads us to the series being 2-1 in kolemoen's favor.
If you don't have the tools, the best answer I think against Consume is really to just go for the top deck mode, hope they run into a Vran, a Forktail without any Necker to consume, and that can win you the game because those cards alone are only worth 6, 8 points, where they really need the Neckers to really shine. So in a 2-card round 3, you normally won't win, but in a 1-card round 3 where you're just top decking, there's a small chance you can get away with it, even without real counters to that Consume
Yeah,
deck.
certainly will, and that Brand deck is almost virtually what kolemoen now has to win with, actually. He is left with his King Brand, and running the traditional package of Olgierd, Morkvarg, and Wolfsbane.
One big difference though, Dandelion Poet.
Yep.
It's a card you normally don't see. You normally see Burner Brand, we've seen it a lot this tournament, and a few other cards. We've seen Saris as well for Tailbot. But normally that 4th gold is contested. There's a few options there. kolemoen looks like he's going to have pretty easy mulligans, both players with Morkvarg and
Ooh, Olgierd from hand. Not ideal. So well, we've done reasonably well at avoiding mirror matches so far this tournament, but buckle in, everyone, because this is going to be Berserker Marauder Bran versus Berserker Marauder Bran.
Very similar decks, both with blacksmiths, both with obviously the great pirate captain, corsair, and longship package, and of course Scale Marauder and Ulrich. So very, very similar decks here.
Yeah, I mean, there are a few differences in the bronze packages. proNEO opting for one more whaler, but one less blacksmith, whereas kolemoen runs 3 blacksmiths. However, the silvers are the same, I believe. And the golds have the difference of Birnabran and Dandelion Poet, with proNEO running Birnabran. So with no weather clear, that Birna could actually find real value.
And kolemoen, I think he maybe is scared of that Birnabran, and he knows that he can't dry pass, even if he wanted to. Which forces proNEO to play that Olga from hand, potentially.
Yeah, it certainly does. So, there we go. We see the traditional Bran opener come in from almost both players. However, Neo does have the Olgierd in hand.
And you don't normally want to get rid of a whaler or a longship here to enable some more corsair sequencing in this round 1, just to, and also gets a bit of a buff as well. Normally you want to do whalers so that longships can be pulled from pirate captains and not have any dead pirate captains. And also, you know, make sure you have that chance to really punish a big row stack from your opponent in this, maybe possibly a long round 1.
Certainly. So, kolemoen now faced with an interesting choice as to how to proceed.
This is an interesting point to pass, I think.
Yeah, I was actually thinking that myself.
You have more carryover. It's a mirror, so really you know you're going to have very similar cards. The Birnabran could really punish him, though, in a long round.
And I mean, you still have more carryover even if he plays, so... Yeah, it's an interesting point in the game for kolemoen. However, he's going for setting up the longship tempo.
And proNEO getting that extra point there with the pirate captain.
He certainly is.
Now there's no pass possibility for kolemoen. He has to really commit to this. proNEO there hovering Olgierd, probably, you know, regretting that last mulligan. I think he had to do it, though. We had a chance for Morkvark and Wolfman. He had one extra mulligan. He risked it and he got punished, which is unfortunate, especially when you're, you know, fighting to stay alive in this tournament.
Yeah, certainly are. kolemoen fighting, of course, for a place in tomorrow's semi-final to face Tailbot, and proNEO fighting to equalize the series and bring it to 2-2 and stay alive in this series.
A lot to think of here. Wolfsbane obviously proccing for both players very soon. You can steal a few points here and there if you get, you know, good targets to attack or to get buffed by, depending on how you do it. So King Bran gets buffed there, takes away a point from the Marauder.
Yeah, great coral draw from Dandy Poet as well.
It does also, you know, it hits the longship, which is good, but it really weakens the coral. It makes it so that you can't really coral this turn anymore. You can't compete with your opponent's coral for the most part. And proNEO here giving kolemoen yet another window to decide to maybe pass at some point.
Certainly does have the option available to him. It certainly seems that he's in control of the tempo so far in this round. However, both players sitting on actually quite different hands, considering it's a mirror match, you know. We have short double Shieldsmith, or Armorsmith now, I believe, in both players' hands. But then the triple Berserker Marauders from proNEO, and I don't know, I almost think that kolemoen's hand looks a little bit more well-rounded.
And for the third longship, it would really be a sign he's committing to this round. Obviously, if you're playing these low-tempo plays, you're looking for them to be, you know, keep on playing for a few more turns so you can get some kind of value from them. And it feels right to play these as early as possible. And I think kolemoen knows this. He wants to really go for a long round here. If Birnabran comes out, it would kind of punish him for committing, but we don't see it in proNEO's hand, so he can't go for that just yet.
Yeah, there we go. The third longship comes down. kolemoen saying, yep, I definitely want to win this round. However, Olgierd gets strengthened.
Very sneaky strengthened there, because he's trying to get an edge on the carryover, so he can go for that dry pass if he loses, or he can block kolemoen's dry pass if he does end up losing this round. So very sneaky play that kolemoen could try and answer back by trying to strengthen that Morkvark.
Yeah, he certainly could. I wonder if that's something that he'll consider here.
Or you could just go for the pass and also get that pass regardless and get rid of that problem. But I think kolemoen, he shows he wants to commit here. He can strengthen that weak longship just to make sure coral doesn't get that much value. Strengthens the 5 there, just to make sure he's not giving coral, you know, unnecessary value for no reason, and also gets that armor on that longship as well.
So Morkvark and Olgierd both strengthened by proNEO. Like you say, sneakily building up the carryover advantage.
But this won't matter if kolemoen decides to pass at some point and let proNEO win this round anyway, and kolemoen will have a better, I think for the most part, the carryover will matter more in round 3, and kolemoen would have that better longship. if proNEO can force out this round enough to the point where he does end up passing him on equal cards, and then that's, you know, that's a completely different story.
Yeah, it certainly is. I do like kolemoen's hand a little better right now, though. Although with Scowl in the hands of both players have a lot of points available to them. Looks like the Coral might come down.
He could get the Olgerd.
He could get the Olgerd. Yep, that's the Olgerd.
And
Oh my goodness.
that
Shieldsmith investment punished.
It punishes the investment from the blacksmith, and it also says, you know, you had a longship that got damaged by the Wolfsbane, so it wasn't as good of a target for Coral, and I don't really care because I'm going to have a different target altogether with Olgerd. So double punish there for proNEO for playing that Olgerd from hand. And proNEO knows that he either catches up in one card or has to pass here to be able to pass or to stay in the round 2 the next turn, or the next round. So, and he can't really do this in one, I think. Even skill won't be enough, and of course,
I don't think he can do it in one, especially with triple ship on the board.
a very aggressive play there from kolemoen. Spending Coral, which is, you know, a big asset. In round 3, it can hit a very big Marauder, a very big ship, and get a great swing. But in the end, he valued winning this round much more, and he's able to get control of this game and really dictate the terms.
Yeah, really choosing to dictate the flow of the game over just raw tempo in a later round, which I like seeing from players for sure. So he's going into the mulligan screen now. Still triple Berserker Marauder in the hand of proNEO.
And it's sometimes valuable to try and mulligan these away to get, you know, more options for Drifa to Skjall and get that Skjall played multiple times. But, ooh, he does end up mulliganing the Marauder, gets a longship instead.
Yeah, he certainly does.
And both players running only 2 Pirate Captain, which I think is very smart. It reduces the chances of getting dead cards. You don't have to thin as perfectly with the Corsairs and mulligan away the longships as well, so it makes the deck a bit safer. Loses a bit more power and thinning overall, but in the end I think it's the correct choice.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see if kolemoen chooses to really push into this round. Or does he just... I mean, it's equal cards if he passes, so it's not like a great advantage, but, you know, his triple ships are spent, so his long round tempo is certainly diminished in quite a significant way.
Although if he has the Corsairs, which I think he can get 2 of them Pirate Captain and restore Pirate Captain, so he has that option. He does have also the Udalryk, which he could play at some point. We'll have to be careful because he knows if his opponent has, for example, Haim into Skjall into Udalryk, then he's absolutely devastated. So
Yeah,
he has
precisely.
to be very, very careful. There's a Pirate Captain enabled for restore. I think he wants to buff up that longship just a bit more. Try and get that bit of a better round 3 finisher by spending some of that setup in this turn while he still can. I think he has...
certainly opening up options for his restore. I mean, we still need to see the strengthen from Shieldsmith come down as well, so there's certainly some decent like delaying actions from kolemoen.
Then the Coral could just get that longship in this turn as well if the blacksmith comes down. So it's tricky. You really have to think about what you're doing here, and I think proNEO would be happy to spend Coral this turn if he can delete that longship from the game, basically. proNEO really thinking here.
Yeah,
What's
he
the
certainly
best
looks
course
like
of
he's
action?
considering it.
Maybe he waits for another blacksmith to come down. You can go slow and play a longship, but...
Looks like Udalryk is going to come out from kolemoen here.
And that's risky. When you're playing it from hand, your opponent may have a Haim Skjall target and make Udalryk basically worth 5 points. It's risky because your opponent can answer back, and still, we see here only a 2-point gap, so... He thankfully has Skjall in hand, so only a 3-point tutor for that Udalryk. And kolemoen still has the option to pass.
Alright, so there's the Udalryk coming out.
Setting up some harpooner value here, I think, or at least pretending to have one in hand.
There's the Birna brand, which will go unanswered if played, so that Birna has really, really high ceiling potential.
And kolemoen might know this. The more he plays into this round, the less value Birna brand has next turn. If it's played this turn, it'll be slow enough where kolemoen can still pass, so I think as soon as kolemoen sees that Birna brand, he'll probably end up passing. If he doesn't see it, right away, he's going to maybe play a bit more into this round and risk it, because it is a risky position to be in if your opponent does end up passing you.
Yeah, it certainly is. Both players debating their next move pretty intensely. I mean, this mirror match is one of meticulous detail, so...
Every single thing matters.
Yeah.
Where your longship hits, if your Monarch gets a buff or not, an extra point or not, when you Coral, if you take away points from the longship, or let it enable Marauders even more. It's really tricky. There's a lot of subtle things you have to watch out for.
Yeah, it's an extremely meticulous... Well, it's an extremely meticulous archetype to play. When you add that to the mirror, managing resources against your opponent becomes infinitely more complex.
So no one's to commit
Still no Birna
longships,
yet.
when to save them for later. quite tough. And kolemoen, of course, playing for a pass to semifinals, proNEO, playing to stay alive in this tournament. This would be his last game if he does end up losing this. It would be a mirror of what happened in Challenger number 1. He lost to PPD in that first final, 1-3. So not a good thought for him. I think he might.
And he was at that time he was the favorite of many people to take the whole tournament. So awesome to see him back on the pro scene for sure. But he is currently fighting for survival.
And kolemoen has Restore in hand where proNEO does not. So that's a big thing in favor for a shorter round 3 where kolemoen could pull out that 21-point silver card that enables Marauders even more, and proNEO might not be able to. kolemoen decided not to risk it, finds a pass here, enables Burner Brand to go on for 6 turns next turn, which could be devastating.
Yeah, that could be really damaging to kolemoen's chances of winning this game.
And of course Coral for proNEO, whereas kolemoen already spent his in round 1 to try and really push proNEO out of that round 1.
Fascinating to see what proNEO decides to spend to take this one. I imagine it's got to be a Berserker Marauder, right? Oh no, the ship, okay.
Could just be a long ship, stays ahead by 1 point, by 2 points, by 1 point.
Skellige math, yeah.
and Skjold still could be available with a Marauder being mulliganed. He wants to get that restore, I think, for sure. He might risk it. I think there's no dead cards really, so, and definitely, yeah, you would definitely want to risk it here. Skjold would be dead. No restore. That could be game deciding.
That is huge for proNEO to not see restore in his hand. That gives an infinitely punchier spike in kolemoen's tempo this round. However, that Burner Brand could just be huge.
kolemoen could have mulliganed there for maybe a Sigrifa. I think he has not spent it yet. Would have been a good extra boost to his tempo there from that res. Could have even maybe mulliganed the Marauder and played Skjold and then let it die to a longship and Sigrifa into it again, but it's risky. I think he made the fairly good decision in keeping those cards and making sure nothing was dead. Right away, the longships, the engine starts as soon as possible. Burner Brand, of course, you want to play it early, but not early enough where you don't know what row your opponent is committing to.
Yes, precisely. He needs to wait for kolemoen to commit to a row and then place that burner.
And a longship does just that. If you play a longship down, you have to play at least 2 units for the synergy to work, so you know your opponent's going to have units there. Normally you want harpooners to guarantee that value as well, but no harpooners for proNEO right now.
Well, there's a fine balancing act to be struck on when to commit the burner here, because the more turns you wait, the less damage it does, but if you don't wait for a row to be sufficiently stacked enough for you to get max value from it, it suffers anyway, so very precarious timing for proNEO on playing this Burner Brand.
And of course the same way with Marauders. If you play your Coral early, let it get damaged, an extra point for all Marauders, but if you wait, you may get a bigger longship, so it's the never-ending math with this mirror. You have to really, take into account every single card, what it does, and when to get optimal value to try and win this round, because it may come down to 1 or 2 points, and you make a mistake and you lose the game.
You certainly do, so looks like Burner's being committed on to the middle row. However, if that keeps pinging that ship, it actually denies Coral some of her potential value, so yeah,
but I mean, you can expect Marauders to come out at fairly decent strength. Maybe not as big as longships, but still quite good. So I think proNEO knows this. He knows he can commit that. He is playing into that longship. He only has 1, so he has to play into that row. And kolemoen has a harpooner that can do a lot of damage into that range row.
It certainly can. kolemoen, however, only with 1 Berserker Marauder in hand, and the last say in this round means that it will actually go unanswered by Coral. So the value on that Coral could really potentially be denied.
Or Skjold will pull a Marauder. I think Ulrich was played, so it is only a Marauder, and that will come out.
See a ship come out first, though.
The Restore coming into play, starting up that second longship.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what the Coral target here is.
Does he commit into that range row? He's giving the Skellige Storm points, but it also gives his Marauder more points as well, so a lot of math to be done here. He goes for the double row there.
Splitting rows, pretty interesting.
And he knows he has to play the Harpooner into that range row anyway, so I think he knows that he had to, sacrifice some value there anyway, so it's probably best to try and get that longship to get the synergy and keep on pinging units. And right away, Skjold comes down. Making sure to play Skjold first, because you want to get those Marauders to get that extra point buff as well from the Skjold. It's tutoring out one of the Marauders. And playing in different rows to not give Harpooner too much value, but already you're giving it a lot of value.
Yeah, Harpooner is going to find a decent target, but it would be in the Storm right now.
think he'll wait as much as possible with a Harpooner. He'll lose points on having it damaged for the Marauder and the skill, but I think it's worth it to try and get some extra value.
I agree.
And also play around Skellige Storm.
Everything coming down to minutiae detail when it comes to point totals here.
I'm into, you know, something like Sigdrifa.
Yeah, would be huge.
Would be pretty massive.
There's the Sigdrifa.
Fairly decent card
the
there.
two silvers you don't want to see, and the Sigdrifa.
You can't get a Marauder, but you can get any machine, basically. You can get both Harpooners and Longships. And Pirate Captains if you have more Dominion units to the left, or Blacksmiths. Blacksmiths definitely work.
They certainly do. So that Blacksmith is going to come down, armor the Demon Pirate Captain, protect him from the ship and the storm for a turn at least.
I love he didn't boost that Longship even higher, just to play around Coral a bit more, even though there is another Longship in the front row. Just the small things that really, and it keeps that Pirate alive and damaged to boost Marauders as well.
Certainly does. So the Berserker Marauders come down. That one's only going to be a 13. Not overly powerful drops right now.
Coral's going to be just really massive as well.
Yeah,
Coral might be game deciding.
valuable. I don't know though, the amount of points in Kolemoen's hand is far from small.
But Burnabrand and Coral, two great golds, obviously getting a lot of value this turn. I think both are going to be easily, 16 to 18 point gold. Well, Coral will be much more than that.
So it looks like we're going to see Kolemoen.
Harpooner might be back row.
Is he going to commit the back? I was thinking the back row too, because honestly, I know he's going straight into the range.
I think it's fairly similar in terms of points. There's two Marauders still coming down.
There's one of them, 14 points. So we got Skjaldo.
As the first Marauder will drop at a very big, I assume. Well, let's not count it. Let's get a little bit of a surprise here from Kolemoen. It should be a bit higher than proNEO, so there's quite a bit. Yeah, quite a lot of damage
coming down. I think, is Kolemoen going to have this?
Coral has a 20-point play here.
That might even be
Yeah, but that's only a 4-point gap.
And only one
There's the
Longship
storm
ticking.
going, however.
Oh,
I think that Kolemoen's got it with the Berserker Marauder in another incredibly closely contested match. My goodness, Kolemoen taking the series 3-1, sealing his place in tomorrow's semi-final as proNEO exits the tournament. Whew, my goodness.
What a great match to witness. Both players really taking their time.
So meticulous,
calculating
yeah.
so many different scenarios, so many different sequencing plays to make the best play possible. In many matches you just see cards being thrown on the board, just points being vomited onto the board. But in this case, I mean, both players really thinking what's the best play at every single turn in the game. So great to see two great GWENT players going at it.